Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to a Division 2 video with Season 3 fast approaching Burden of Truth this Tuesday on the 25th of February. I want to touch on the last thing, and that is the named weapons. Yes, we will get 2 new named weapons added to the game, and they are going to be the Goalie. This is a named FAL, and the Rusty, this is a named RPK. And this of course comes with his own talent, and it's going to be a new talent added into the loot pool, and that is Pressure Point. And of course these guns will handle the perfect pressure point. What will perfect pressure point do for us? It will give us a 15% amplification damage upon all enemies that are affected by a status effect. And that means all status effects. So for example, when you foam somebody, this pressure point talent will instantly kick in and will give you that 15% amplification damage upon that enemy. This is particularly good within a group. Imagine you running around in DUA Legendary, 3 people running around with DPS, and of course 1 CC player just foaming everybody, and everybody will instantly get that 15% amp damage. But of course, let's test out a little bit how it will fare against the other amplification damage within the status effects, as we know that if we do a status effect as a solo player, it might be even better to go for the particular status effect, as that will give you more amp damage. As we know, we have 3 other weapon talents that will add an amplification damage to status affected enemies, with Ignited giving us an extra 25% amplification damage to burning enemies. We have Eyeless that will go 1 step up to 30% amplification damage to blinded enemies, but overall the fire occurs a lot, so I can understand that's only 25. Blinded won't happen that much, it's a little bit harder to apply to your enemy. But then of course we have Sadist as well, that will give us also a 30% amplification damage to bleeding enemies, what is a lot easier to achieve, for example with an OD build, ongoing directive, constantly having those bleed bullets. And to showcase this a little bit better for you, let's jump over to the shooting range and compare the 2 weapons. The 2 weapons that I'm talking about is exactly the same weapon, but now we're doing the Goalie versus a regular FAL that I will roll Ignited on. Ignited will give us 25% amplification damage against enemies that are under the fire status effect, and I will use a fire turret as a skill to put the enemy on fire to see what type of damages we can do. If we start with the Goalie, the new pressure point talent doing 15% amp damage to all status effects, we see we hit around 800 to 840k on body crit armor shots. If we now switch over to the regular FAL with Ignited on there, try that again, and we'll see that we hit around 900k to 1 million on body armor crit shots. So that is already a 100 to 150k difference in damage output. So now let's test it out on a red build and on a striker build versus Killer. Killer of course got updated as well, will now give us 70% extra crit damage whenever we take out an enemy. If we test this out with pressure point on again a regular red build, we of course hit around at 800 to 840k ish damage on a body armor crit shot. If we take Killer, we already hit 900k ish on a body armor crit shot. So again, Killer will give us more damage. Not that much more, and of course we need to take out an enemy to get this damage in, but also we need an enemy under a status effect to get that perfect pressure point to kick in as well. And the last build I want to test out, as this will probably be used the most, as I foresee that this talent will be a lot and a lot better within a group play, especially like I mentioned in the intro, if you're running around with 3 DPS, 1 CC player, foaming everybody, the foam jumps over to every player in, for example, DOA on Legendary. Everybody on the DPS team, if they rock this perfect pressure point, will instantly have that 15% amp damage, or on whatever weapon you want to use as the normal talent, 10% amp damage. And that's where I personally think that this talent will be utilized the most. So for the last test, let's get Striker on, let's get perfect pressure point, and let's get a normal FAL with Killer. And if we start the test with perfect pressure point, you'll see that we'll do around 1 million body armor crit shots, all the way up to 1.23 million health crit shots. And if we switch over to Killer, you can see that we almost do the same armor body crit shots, but when we hit the health of that NPC, we will hit that 1.34 million, what again will be 100 to 150k higher than we're hitting with pressure point. Again, pressure point will kinda be free, as I just explained, if you're gonna run around with a group. If somebody is CCing and putting that status effect constantly on your enemies, pressure point will always be active and will be kinda free. Where Killer, of course, you need to take out an enemy for that. Within a group it is still possible, but it's a little bit harder to achieve. So my overall opinion about this talent, it is on the solo play decent. I will personally still go for the particular status effects, as that is a little bit easier to achieve as a solo player, especially with an ongoing directive build, with that bleed on there even being higher amplification damage. As a solo player, I will probably not switch over to pressure point, but just like we talked about, as a group with a CC, it might be the way to go. Again, I am not the mathematician out here. We have to wait on IKEA, we have to wait on DOT to, of course, calculate all these damages. And, of course, these were all numbers from the PTS. There are still things subject to change, so let's wait until Tuesday, but I'm quite excited about this within a group. This is of course my opinion about the new talent coming. Now I wanna hear yours. Do you think you're gonna run around with this as a solo player, or do you share the opinion that it might be goated in a group form, especially with a CC'er in your group? Let me know in the comments down below. We'll love to hear your opinion, but that's pretty much it for me today. Thank you very much for sticking until the end. Like the video if you liked the video or helped you out in any way or form. And of course, if you're new here and or you want to be updated about the Division 2, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And I will see you in the next one. Pure Prime out.